Welcome along to the Matchbook NFL podcast. It's week 2, and we've had a bit of an eventful week 1 to take you through and review that before giving you some selections for week 2. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined this week and every week this season by Brad, Allen, and Judah Fortgang at Throw the Damn Ball. Sorry, Judah. But but before we get into week 1 takeaways, Judah, you put up, we were just speaking off here, you put a lot of graphs up on Twitter. For those listeners that still aren't on Twitter or follow Judah, he's well worth the follow. But you're getting a lot of, I would say, traction on some of those tweets.
Yeah, one chart, it's very descriptive, like time to throw and depth of target. Thought might provide like a little bit of context, like one data point or 2 data points, I should say, among many others. And, the replies are, you have no idea what makes a good quarterback. It's like, well, never said anything about that. But I think, week 1 was a great reminder of the beauty of football and then just like the madness. I mean, we had so many games that some kind of one player or another late in games decided it, like missed field goal in Cleveland, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Tampa Bay also missed field goal as time expired after Tampa Bay scored a touchdown after Michael Penix had a dramatic play. The Rams-Texans game decided by a fumble. The Bills' improbable comeback over the Ravens also aided by a fumble. Then the Monday Night Football game as well. Just such madness. And a reminder that like anything can happen. And until someone's in victory formation, these games are never over.
Yeah, some insane comebacks. And Brad, it's how to sort of take some of those learnings from week 1 into week 2. But like the unders, well documented now at this stage, has hit in the majority of games. I'm sure you'll have the exact number there. How do we take that as bettors, first of all, into, because you sort of touched on with a small bit of the new rules that maybe layering or putting some of these bets into multiples could potentially pay. I guess anyone who did the unders and the other side of that would maybe have paid in week 1.
Yeah. So that was the obviously one of the ideas I had last week was maybe these long field goals and new kickoff rules means we've got overs everywhere. Turns out that was completely wrong, but I suppose that's the benefit of chucking it in a treble. Like if the idea is right, you get it, but you don't lose 3 bets. So instead unders 12 and 4 last week, and so I suppose obviously we want to be working out is this carrying forward. And I'm on the fence, to be honest. There was a great stat from Action Network actually who looked back at the last 20 years where the unders also went 12 and 4, and this happened 3 times before: 2023, 2010, 2006, and then in those 3 years the under went 17 and 29 in week 2. So it bounced all the way back the other way. So the under was a terrible bet in week 2, and then the under was not above 500 in any of those years. So that would suggest it's going to bounce back. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like the long field goal stuff, that is absolutely a thing. I think a lot of the games went over 3.5 field goals. The longest field goals were 60 yards, 59 yards. So kickers are definitely more efficient if you want to go, and I think you can go and bang some multiples out on long field goals and total field goals over. But is unders a thing? The structural reason why it might be a thing. So obviously for years now it's been 2 deep safeties, stop the explosive plays. And then I've seen some tape this week, or X's and O's guys talking about some different ways defensive lines were doing, because the weakness of that 2 safety shell was always, well, they can run the ball for 4.5 yards a clip, and if they do that, then that's you're in trouble as a defense. But there was some ways defenses were counteracting the run this week, like shifting everyone to the left just as the snap was, like just before the snap, to try and throw off the spacing of the run blockers, things like that. So I could see that it is a kind of a little structural change, that defenses are ahead, and definitely earlier in the year, where obviously we've got 3 preseason games now. I could buy there might still be some rust in week 2 personally.
Okay, yeah, Judah, anything to add on that? Like, there's a lot in that defense setups. There were outliers, of course. Steelers, Jets was the one, like, if you ask me what's going to be the lowest scoring game, that was in my bottom 3 for sure. So, I mean, there's still a lot to try and dissect from it, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, who would have thought that Justin Fields would have like played the way he did and not taken the sack? That's kind of unfathomable, and a reminder that like we should have a lot of humility, especially early in the season. But one of the first things I looked at was like base rates of like, was there more of this coverage play or this, or did you see more screen passes? Everything was in line, more or less, with the statistical averages. This is football. Any week, anything can happen.
Absolutely, and as Judah always says, we're so blessed to enjoy the next several weeks. Very much looking forward to Red Zone on a Sunday evening, 7 hours of commercial-free football for those of us in the Ireland and UK. Sorry about that, Judah, but we don't have ads.
Commercial-free.
So great. Yeah, we're commercial-free on the international feed. Yeah. No, we are. International feed is completely free of ads, believe it or not.
I see. Trying to flex the... I see.
Yes, correct. Correct. But there's only a matter of time before someone gets in there. But anyway, we'll crack on as ever with the format this year. We're trying a couple of things, keeping it a bit heavy. Seeing a lot of the comments week one, some good, some bit of feedback as well on the show. We're aiming for around 30-minute runtime and see how we get on. But as ever, get involved in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe completely for free wherever you're watching or listening, and take advantage if you don't have a Matchbook account and you're based in the UK or Ireland. Of Pod 50, enter the bonus code Pod 50 exclusive to podcast listeners. You get £50 worth in free bets when you bet £50. Full T's and C's on screen, but also available on matchbook.com/promotions. Judah, one of the late games, if we start on week one Sunday slate, was Seahawks 49ers. I sort of enjoyed the game, like in a good atmosphere coming through on the TV. Knew a couple of people there as well. Take us into prop selection for this one here, and maybe a bit of feedback on that week one, because Seahawks were a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, another game that ended on a dramatic turnover as Seattle was driving, and Nick Bosa got the sack fumble there. I think Seattle, their defense going pretty good. The offense has like a ton of question marks, which leads me into my prop play, which is they effectively have one wide receiver right now. I mean, Cooper Kupp at this point seems fully washed. I don't think that Torrey Horton, the fifth-round pick from this past season, who's starting at their outside receiver spot right now, is the answer. And like Jackson Smith-Njigba got 54% of the targets. They only had 23 pass attempts, and it was just an insane number that I think is going to continue just by virtue of the fact that there's very little talent. Now, you know, in the UK, you might have commercial-free football, but the prices on these props may be a little bit worse. So for those Americans listening, shop around for some different prices on the American books. But I do like Jackson Smith-Njigba. You can get it at Matchbook at 70 yards at 1.9. And this is a guy that I think is just going to be peppered with targets. And I don't think he's going to sustain a 50% rate right now. But I do suspect that he's going to be in the 35 to 40% range. I anticipate many more passes. It was a very, very slow game. And yes, the Seahawks are going to be run heavy, but Jalen Ramsey's a great cornerback. I think that Seattle will find ways to get Smith-Njigba to play around, and the Steelers themselves are dealing with some secondary problems. But ultimately, this is a guy who I think is going to have maybe the biggest role of any receiver in the NFL this year, just given his position on the Seahawks wide receiver depth chart.
Okay, that's Seahawks at the Steelers. Brad, any thoughts on Njigba? I mean, every time I looked him up from my phone and watched Red Zone, he was getting a reception there on Sunday.
Yeah, I think he had 82.7% of Seahawks receiving yards, which is that's pretty punchy. And yeah, the Steelers secondary looked slow outside of Jalen Ramsey, like Darius Slay out there, sort of wandering around, missing tackles. So you know, if they get him one-on-one in, I think, any sort of space, Smith-Njigba could cook him. So yeah, I like the angle.
Okay, yeah, agreement so far. We're going to try and get the lads to give a feedback on the other guy's selection, and we're hoping it won't be agreement throughout. But look, if it's a good bet, it's a good bet, lads. So keep it real. Brad, one for you. Where do we start with the Lions? I mean, were the Packers that good, or were the Lions just awful on offense? It was a bit of a weird one, because that was a game I was really looking forward to, and you could switch off from it after 3 quarters, Matt. You know?
Yeah, I'd say a bit of both, but I think, yeah, definite concern on the Lions side. And I think you probably start with the rushing success rate, which was 31.8%. So bottom 8. And obviously that is where they've hung their hat for the last 3 years. But yeah, you kind of look at the offensive line, and it's, you know, the center retired. They lost 2 other players. So they had 3 new starters in different places, essentially. And then obviously new offensive coordinator, and I think Goff is a player where he needs that stability. You know, his stats with pressure and without pressure have been huge for years now, and yeah, just the offensive line and the system isn't the same as it has been. So I can definitely buy that they've taken a real step back. And then you look at, they also played slowly. They were 31st in situation neutral pace on the week, and then the 7th lowest pass rate. So yeah, for whatever reason, maybe they didn't trust the offense either, and they just thought, let's try and shorten this game. But that didn't work for them. And in fact, that game against the Packers had 112 snaps, which was tied for the fewest in the league last week, and it was actually tied with the Bears game. So we just talk about the Bears quickly as well. So they were also 25th in pace. They were 27th in offensive success rate. And after the script early in the game, they looked like they kind of had nothing. So we've got two kind of inefficient, slow offenses, and the total was 47. And I just think that has to be based on last year and, you know, what the Lions were last year at home. But I think there's a reasonable suggestion that they're kind of not that. And we'd also, if you look at the Bears defense quickly, they're probably getting Jalen Johnson back at corner, probably getting TJ Edwards back at linebacker, probably getting the nickel cornerback, Tyler Gordon. So again, those guys are all questionable. It's not certain yet. Obviously, it's Thursday as we're talking, but there's a chance they get all of them back. And then that's going to be the back end of that defense has always been their strength. So yeah, I just feel 47 is a point and a half too high, maybe 2 points.
Okay. Yeah. Anything on that, Judah? I mean, small sample size, I know, but already 1 week in, that new Lions offense doesn't quite seem to be clicking. And if they aren't, then you're surely getting great value on this line of 47.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that the market's been a little slow to downgrade Detroit. Though I also could put stock in the fact that Green Bay's a great defense. I think it's what Brad mentioned, that like I want to see these injuries before making a play here. Like the Chicago secondary right now is really banged up.
Okay, under 47 current price as we record, 1.9 selection for Brad. Then do you want to move on to the Jags at the Bengals? And Trevor Lawrence, you're going to go for 250 plus passing yards here above even money.
Yeah, again, check the prices.
Always.
On if you're in America and don't have access to Matchbook, of course. But this is a Bengals team and a defense that I think projects to be one of the worst in the NFL. I mean, playing against Joe Flacco, he has been fine given his situation. I don't think he's anyone's version of a great quarterback, and they allowed like 6.1 yards per attempt. Their coverage, their perfect coverage rate was very low. This does not seem to be a secondary that is going to be pretty good. I mean, Shamar Stewart had a great debut, so it's possible they get some kind of pass rush from him and Trey Hendrickson. And the Jaguars also passed above expectation last week. I think that's kind of the way Liam Cohen likes to run his offenses, just that game was out of control very quickly. So I think we see the Jaguars continue to lean into the pass as they did very early into that game. And just by virtue of Cincinnati being able to put up points, I think last week was probably on the lower end of their offensive output. I think we're just going to see more plays, a closer game, and the Jaguars passing a lot more to get Lawrence the volume that is necessary at the rate of efficiency anticipated against the Bengals defense.
Okay, yeah. Brad, any thoughts on Trevor Lawrence?
No, I'm happy to fade this Bengals defense, though. You know, I think that's one of the mirages of the score. The box scores last week, giving up 16 points, whatever they did with missed field goals, missed extra points, and obviously against a Joe Flacco led offense. So yeah, I think with a real offense, and we think Trevor Lawrence is that with Liam Cohen there, then I can see some points.
Okay, yeah. So not similar lines perhaps for Brad, but not quite enough for to follow Judah in there. Brad, full disclosure, you did potentially have the Jets on side here, but you decided against it. Just give the listeners a bit of insight into that.
This was essentially that the Bills defense just got cooked by a mobile quarterback in a good scheme, and now they're facing a mobile quarterback with a scheme which looks for the first time to be catered to Justin Fields. He's been into bad organizations with the Bears and whoever. And now, so he had 9 designed runs last week. He had sort of various read options and things like that, which looked to cater like he prefers throwing outside the numbers. They were doing that. And he had 9.9 yards per attempt, something like that. So with the Bills still suffering a little bit in the secondary, and again, it looks like them, injuries at the minute. It looks like Taron Johnson might miss again. I can definitely see the Jets having success on the ground and through the air again. And then if you're getting 6.5 points at home, that to me is enough, to be honest.
Okay, yeah. So maybe a lean for Brad towards the Jets at +6.5. Any thoughts on Bills Jets? Jude, I mean, Bills were obviously involved in that sensational comeback, but I think by and large people realize the Ravens probably should have had enough to had that game won at least at the very least near the end.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's an element of what do we make of the Jets offense that I don't think anyone thought it was in the cards for them to put up 30 points. So I think there's some upgrading there. Yeah, I would lean there if I had to choose a side. Maybe if it got to 7.5, that's a bet I would like to make, and it was there earlier this week.
Okay, yeah, so that line's currently 6.5, just for full disclosure. Time of recording at 1.89. Judah, we'll throw this at you, and the Giants are at the Cowboys here. We could ladder this all the way up to -4.5 on the Matchbook Bet Builder, but you would go all the way to -5.5 if you can get that. Why are they a good bet at the Dallas Cowboys here?
Yeah, I mean, we're playing a tail here. This is a long shot. I think that we kind of saw the ceiling performance for Dallas. Dak Prescott played an absolutely terrific game. That isn't to say he can't play that sort of game, but the Philadelphia pass rush was not great without Jalen Carter. There's also a lot of funkiness there. I'm sure the game plans changed, but I don't think we should continue to expect Dak Prescott to play that sort of game. And there was an almost immediate upgrade of this Dallas offense in the market. I think there's a huge mismatch right now between the Giants defensive line and the Cowboys offensive line. The Cowboys offensive line had like a 40 PFF grade. Tyler Guyton, who's starting at left tackle, he's just bad. He was terrible last year. He graded as one of the worst left tackles in week 1. Like, that's going to be a huge mismatch, whether it's Thibodeau, Burns, Carter, whomever is actually lined up against him on these snaps. And the rest of this Cowboys offensive line is not great either. Now, there's a fair retort to say, well, shouldn't that have been true last week? The Giants pass rush didn't do so much. I think it is an entirely different beast when you have Jaden Daniels, who can scramble so elusively and navigate pressure so well, whereas Dak Prescott at this stage in his career doesn't scramble. He scrambled at the second lowest rate, only behind Matthew Stafford last week. And the scrambles I'm charting here are not just plays that cross the line of scrimmage, but anytime someone actually begins the process of scrambling. So just like Jared Goff, I think Dak Prescott at this point in his career is very much a kind of part of his situation. And I think there's a huge mismatch, or at least an opportunity for the Giants defensive line to really take over this game. And the Cowboys are not going to be able to take advantage on the offensive side of what the Giants defense presents. Very quickly on the other side, this is a terrible Dallas defense. And I think a huge problem for the Giants this year is going to be, especially without Andrew Thomas, is going to be anytime they play a good pass rush. I don't think the Cowboys have it right now to really do any sort of disruption. I think we touched on this a bit last week, but I think Dante Fowler's best days are behind him. Sam Williams is playing for the first time in a couple of years. He's not graded out particularly well. There's just not a lot of talent to take advantage of. Add on the Deron Blanchard. I think the Giants, they hit on a couple of deep balls. They play some good defense. They can absolutely come away with a win with margin here.
Okay, yeah, that's Giants -4.5, 4.0 on Matchbook. Brad, it does feel a game that maybe in a few weeks, similar to what I think you spoke about in the last week's show, you could see these teams maybe rated a lot closer together. So is it worth a top tail sort of play, and is it something you would do yourself as a bettor?
Yes, and so I was looking at one specific part of the matchup, and Judah touched on it there, which is, well, so 2 weeks ago I was chatting to someone about the Cowboys, and I said if they get any secondary injuries, they are in deep trouble. And then obviously last night news comes through, Deron Bland hurt his foot during practice. So you look at the Cowboys secondary now, and their starting nickel corner is a guy whose name I've literally looked up and just forgotten, but they signed him 2 weeks ago, as like a free agent. So he is not an experienced and good player. So I'm looking at one of these Giants receivers to go well, and I've settled on Slayton. So last week, Slayton over longest reception over 16.5 was like the popular pick. A lot of people like 4 for 4 were giving out that as a bet, and he did absolutely nothing. He might have got one reception, but I quite like going back to this because I think all the attention on the Cowboys side is going to be on Malik Neighbors, and you're going to have Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot where Russ doesn't really throw the ball, and then Slayton running deep one-on-one a lot of the time, and that is where Russ likes to throw the ball. So I think we can just hit on one 40-yard reception, and that's paying out around 9.0 at the minute.
Okay, and on those receptions, I think Judah put in the chat there, Reddy Stewart is the name of the cornerback there. So when you're doing the laddering, Brad, how would you decide that are you just playing 40 plus yards at the 8-1 shot, take your chances, or do you ladder it up from the baseline of, say, wherever the 1.9 is?
I don't have a hard and fast rule, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I think with someone like Russ, who he's looking for those deep moon balls, I think 40 is definitely on the table.
One off, yeah, cool. Let's go to best bets time here. Judah, yeah, let's throw back to you. This is one now, full disclosure, you're very close to putting in your long shot in terms of playing the tail. So I'm just putting words in your mouth here. I'm suggesting you'll probably play a tail here as well. But again, it did strike me similar to the Giants, and I hate sort of just agreeing with when I see the play, but it could be one in it. Like, if the Dolphins are that bad, I know it's a small sample size, we can take advantage of that in week 2. Obviously they're going to be better at home, but they were definitely the worst no-show performance last week.
Yeah, so I think there are like two things that are here, which is one, like, you have to react to the Dolphins' performance, seeing how bad it was. The other is that the Dolphins just got decimated by injury. Like, they're going to be down both their tackles. The only like NFL caliber, which is putting it nicely for the cornerback, at Storm Duck, is out. Like, they just have the three of us effectively playing in the secondary. Somewhat disappointing that Zach Sealer and Chop Robinson had pretty terrible games at pass rush. Not to mention that, like, Tua Tagovailoa just does not seem like a capable quarterback at the moment. Don't think he's been the same since the injury. I don't think the Patriots are that good. And like, I was talking about Vegas last week. I think this is just and the reason why I like this very much so on the tails as well, is that there's a non-zero chance we look back and the Dolphins are the worst team in football right now. This is a pass rush which on paper should be good, and a secondary that is absolutely atrocious. And even right now, they have no offensive line. They really can't have any longer developing plays, which is where this Dolphins offense has in the past been so successful, is attacking that intermediate area of the field on crossers. But they don't have enough time for those plays to develop because their protection can't hold up. That's why Tua Tagovailoa's depth of target has been so low the last couple of years. I anticipate that's going to continue given the Dolphins tackle injuries. I don't see how they can take advantage of the area where New England is weakest, which is in the secondary. Certainly if Christian Gonzalez is not back 100%. I think this is a spot where the Dolphins are at a real crossroads. Things can get ugly very, very quickly, especially given the state of this defense and the state of this offensive line.
Okay, Brad, yes, small sample size or not, when you factor that bad performance in with the injuries, as Judah said, you can be ready to fade the Dolphins, in a lot of positions very quickly. Is it important to just react in real time instead of waiting those couple of weeks when the market value may be potentially gone?
Yeah, I quite like the idea of betting on the tails, of going minus 18.5, whatever, because there's definitely a part of me that goes, everyone in the world has just seen them lose by 30. Everyone all off season has been talking about the Dolphins falling apart. We all know the NFL's weird. Like, is this the point where they come out and win the game, or like, oh, we're idiots? But again, there is absolutely the chance that they do not have an NFL caliber secondary. Like, that Storm Duck injury shouldn't be as big as it is, but they've got nobody back there. And you watched that Colts game back last week, and it looks to me a lot like the Dolphins being terrible. Like, just people were not following guys in motion out wide. Like, they were not organized. They were garbage. And, I think that you can look to fade the Colts in future as well, because they looked good. And I'm not sure that was them. So yeah, I quite like taking another, 20-point blowout for the Dolphins to try and get that onside.
Yeah, no, it's chasing those tails as much as we can this season. And Brad, final word to you. Chargers at the Raiders, divisional matchup, both coming off 1-0. I mean, you would assume Chargers were the more impressive against the Chiefs, obviously. Why are you favoring the Raiders here in Las Vegas this weekend?
I want to be against the Chargers because I think that was more impressive than it looked, that win. Part of it was, it was two close teams duking it out, and then obviously Justin Herbert just made more plays at the end, never gave Mahomes really a chance to get the ball back with enough time. But I think the defense for the Chargers looked a lot better than it was. They were one I was looking to get against this season. Like last year, they were really good against garbage teams, backup quarterbacks they faced well, but whenever they played like a decent offense, they struggled. And then last week, A, they didn't really stop Mahomes, but B, the entire Chiefs game plan, and Mahomes said this after the game, was based around Xavier Worthy. And then he goes out in the first 5 minutes of the game with a dislocated shoulder, and they were discombobulated throughout. They were basically, it was Hollywood Brown or bust, which is not really where you want to be. So I guess the question then is, do you think the Raiders can take advantage of it? And Geno looked pretty damn good last week. The Raiders were first in the NFL in explosive play rate, second in yards per attempt, second in play action rate. Geno went for 362 yards. So I kind of can see a similar success for Geno, definitely. And yeah, getting 3.5 at home is just a bit too rich for me.
Yeah, Brock Bowers look good. You know this, you might not know, Brad. I'm a massive Chargers fan, but I think Brad might have hit on the nail on the head there. I mean, offensively, throw heavy, very happy with it. Defense, it was probably a non-story because more so the Chiefs. Judah, are you with Brad or against them in this match, or have you any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I go the Chargers side here if I had to. I think the market is like really reacting to the Raiders' offensive performance. I think that more has to do with the state of New England secondary than it does the Raiders. I think the main question is going to be the pass rate. If Justin Herbert they had by far the highest like pass rate over expected last week, it was close to like 15%. If that number is anywhere close, I think, there are two parts to this. I think they're signaling the fact that like, we finally see Justin Herbert healthy, and that is the reason why they passed 15%, which is signaling in and of itself. And I think also like this is going to be a lot better of an offense if they allow Herbert to unleash it. And I think there's just way more talent on this offensive side of things. Not to mention, like, yes, the Chargers defense didn't look great. It's still Patrick Mahomes, and he was still absolutely terrific. So I think this game has moved a lot. Even off the look aheads from Sunday. I think this was sitting at like 4.5, 5 before, and I think that's a reflection on the Raiders, and I'm not ready to drink the Kool-Aid on them just yet.
Yeah, Brad, any concerns there that Judah's thrown at you? Maybe Chargers are just very, very good.
There's definitely a world where Herbert, if they come out and throw a lot as well, then the Raiders the Raiders defensive backfield is not good. There's not much talent on that defensive roster. So yeah, it could be a shootout, as you're both talking there, I was like over. But yeah, time will reveal all there. Chargers ready to be heard again. I think come playoff time with Herbert, but hopefully we have a good regular season. Take it from there. Could potentially top the division there too. But my thanks to Brad and Judah. There's a few bets thrown at you there. Insights.matchbook.com. There will be a full recap from Friday morning. We see a lot of people going over there. Do check that out. Make sure you're hitting that like button as well. It takes 2 seconds. Helps our content get out to a wider audience. My thanks again to Brad and Judah. We'll be back next week. Enjoy Sunday's football. And if you're watching Red Zone in the UK and Ireland, enjoy the 7 hours of commercial-free football. Bye-bye.